Welcome everyone to today's soft launch of the Alliance of Global Talent Organizations, AGTO, a new international organization for improving the flow of talent worldwide. My name is Martin Geiger. I'm a researcher working on global talent mobility, and I have the pleasure and honor to moderate today's soft launch. I'm joined by four distinguished panelists whom I will introduce as we will go through our panel. Before we start, I would like to remind everybody of the panel time frame. Time management is essential as the session broadcast will be automatically cut, and we are also asked to allow a substantial amount for debate, questions and answers. I would like also to tell our audience that you can use the live chat function on the right side throughout the session for sending questions. We are prepared to interact with you, the audience, and answer to some of your questions later on at the end of our panel. As our first distinguished panelist, I'd like to introduce Dr. Henry Wang, the president and founder of the Center for China and Globalization, and a renowned expert on talent mobility. His center, CCG, has initiated and proposed the AGTO project to the Paris Peace Forum. Dr. Wang, as the Director General and Project Lead of the AGTO, could you elaborate on the goals of the AGTO and why there's a need for an enhanced global governance of talent?
Thank you, Professor Gardner. And also, I'm very pleased to see all the distinguished panel on this very important occasion. As you know, that Paris Peace Forum is very well known in the world, launched by French President Macron in 2018. And we actually joined the Paris Peace Forum for the first year. The Paris Peace Forum actually is a platform for the vertical globalization and is actually attracting proposals from all around the world. So we were lucky at the first year of the opening year of the Paris Peace Forum. We actually proposed the Alliance of Global Talent Organization, and is one of the several hundred, about 800, I think 850 proposals. That is only 100 has been adopted, and AGTO is one of them. And again, we've been incubated by Paris Peace Forum on this, and then on the second year of last year, and we're very pleased to see that AGTO is now launched at Paris Peace Forum as a result of the global governance and talent mobility, and also the initiative that has been really for the Paris Peace Forum. So thanks very much for the Paris Peace Forum for all the attention and the selection. The Alliance of Global Talent Organization, AGTO, is an international non-government organization which brings relevant stakeholders together with the aim to enhance the governance of global talent mobility worldwide. As we all know, there's a goods movement, there's a capital movement, there's also a talent movement. So AGTO addressed the important gap of the global talent mobility and also the global talent movement governance. While development, innovation, and growth depend continued mobility of a highly skilled professionals and the talent, and so despite the competition over the talent prior to COVID-19, there is no mechanism. Probably there's not many non-government mechanism in place in this world to really look after the talent mobility issues, so that we can really have a better flow. The COVID-19 has actually exacerbated the talent shortage and the talent mobility. And I think that we really need to improve the situation with this newly launched global talent organization. So this is really great. We have so many experts joining us. I'm really pleased that Paris Peace Forum has actually been supporting us for the last 3 years, and now we are finally after launching at Paris Peace Forum. So AGTO traces back the first Paris Peace Forum, and also the joint spirit of promoting innovative governance and development of talent mobility. So Paris Peace Forum is a great incubator, which I think we really own a great deal, and AGTO is really starting from the idea of 2018, and now we are launching at this 2020, Paris Peace Forum again. I understand this Paris Peace Forum has been highly attention worldwide. French President Macron has spoken, Secretary General of United Nations spoken, European Union President spoken, Chinese President Xi Jinping spoken, and WHO Director General spoken. So it's highly watched around the world. So the pandemic has actually brought the talent mobility to a standstill, which is very unfortunate. And the government and the NGO sectors and industries require the updated knowledge, expertise, and also professional help for the relaunching of the talent attraction and retention of the talent. It's really how we can secure a sustainable global development of the talent mobility. There really should be more to starting the talent focus so we can restart and revitalize our economy and also the global talent mobility. So this actually the AGTO recognized this crisis. So we were actually in birth of this crisis, and we recognized the sustainable development goal that the SDG launched by the United Nations, and also the Global Compact of Migration launched by the IOM as well. So and also United Nations for that exactly. So the purpose, I think, to establish global framework of talent mobility through which are basically two main objectives. First is to reach global consensus on the basis of initiating and deepening talent-specific policy dialogues driven by researchers, stakeholders, and all sector insights. And second, establishing the AGTO as a center for excellence for the identification and dissemination of data and knowledge and exchanges and effective policies and industry best practice, so that AGTO can be a bridge between the countries on talent facilitation, mobility, and also talent utilizations. So actually, we already had organized several webinars. Prior to this, we already had one webinar on talent mobility on April 24 this year. And we actually hold a webinar, what are the impacts of COVID-19 on global talent mobility? We have about 10 university presidents from China, US, Europe joining us. And also in September this year, we held another webinar called the Talent Magnets of Eurasia, relaunching the urban talent attraction and retention. So next month, we're holding another webinar. So I think we are really looking forward to this launching, and we really appreciate all of you to share your wisdom and your ideas for this great launch of Alliance of Global Talent Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you for starting off our panel, Dr. Wang, Director General of the AGTO. And indeed, this is a watershed moment, the pandemic, and we should use it to actually rethink and relaunch talent governance. From the feedback from stakeholders, we know talent already before COVID-19 often remained underutilized. Foreign credentials were not always fully recognized. There were problems of family members not able to find relevant employment themselves. And talent mobility often was associated to brain or skill or care drain. And we also require enhanced talent governance in order to prepare for the future, for our knowledge economies and what's the impact of AI. And finally, as mentioned by Dr. Wang, the COVID pandemic poses new challenges, and the AGTO most likely can play a key role in helping economies to bounce back. That's the phrase of the Paris Peace Forum this year following the pandemic. In the following, we will learn about the AGTO, how the AGTO will become realized, and what can be expected from the AGTO. I'd like to hand over now to Dennis Simon. He's Senior Advisor to the President of Duke University and a leading academic and expert on innovation and talent. Dr. Simon, as Chairman of the AGTO, can you provide us with some more details about the AGTO and how it will operate?
Thank you, Martin. It's my pleasure. And again, thank you everyone for attending and participating in the Paris Peace Forum. I'm going to talk a bit about the organizational design of the Alliance for Global Talent Organization. We tried to build a very lean but highly functional organization. And so our structure includes a council, a steering committee, a secretariat, a research and consultancy unit, and also a funds management department. The council actually serves as the AGTO's main decision-making entity. It selects our director general, it selects the secretariat, and it also receives guidance and advice from the steering committee members as relevant. It also directs and monitors the work of our two main units, the research unit and the fund management unit. And so it will be a very busy organizational operation for that particular organization. The Secretariat serves as the managing body of the AGTO. It oversees the regular operations of all AGTO units. It also is responsible for liaison with all of AGT's partner organizations, its networks, and its contacts worldwide. And it also serves as the mechanism for acquiring new projects, for including new member organizations, and bringing in other kinds of stakeholders and supporters for the overall alliance. We strive to have a really globally oriented, diverse organization with members of the council and the steering committee drawn from countries across the globe. In terms of our institutional membership, the AGTO welcomes members from all around the world again. Those entities whose relevance corresponds to AGTO's focus, our goals and our activities, obviously with respect to key issues like talent mobility, human resource management, and those who deal with the policy dimensions and the governance issues associated with talent mobility and talent management. Members will be invited and proposed by the AGTO, and they'll be proposed to our secretariat, and each member will require a 2/3 majority approval of the council of members in order to become part of the AGTO. We will formalize the initial membership during our first steering committee meeting later this year. Partners and agencies that have already provided some support, including financial support, include the Center for China and Globalization, the International Organization for Migration, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Association of Executive Search and Leadership Consultants, and LinkedIn China, among others. And we hope to see this number grow in the future. With this kind of organizational structure and this kind of global worldwide membership, we hope to leverage our relationship with our partners, and we hope to use this as a vehicle to acquire the necessary funding from around the globe. Again, tapping into available funding from partners, foundations, and other kinds of donors. Our goal at the end of the day is really focused on four main things. Number one, to enhance global cooperation around the issue of talent. Second, to establish a platform for global discussions that have to do with the coordination and collaboration when we deal with talent issues. Third, to become a cooperative entity where we can exchange ideas and advice about critical issues dealing with talent. And finally, to generate better knowledge, provide new insights, and to provide strategic foresight so that we can meet the new challenges that lie ahead as we attempt to deal with issues surrounding talent mobility and talent management. And this is obviously, as Henry has indicated, especially important in the post-COVID-19 era, where we need to figure out how we are going to resume the support for high levels of talent mobility and getting people to be able to move around on a worldwide basis. So I thank you all, and if you have any questions, I welcome you to use the chat feature to raise those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. This really provided some good insights into the organizational functioning of the AGTO. And I think the next step for us is really to look at one of the crucial components you mentioned, the research component. And here it is my pleasure to bring in another distinguished expert on talent mobility. I'd like to welcome Professor Emeritus David Zweig of Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Dr. Zweig, could you elaborate on the AGTO and its research agenda, and how the AGTO will become a new hub of knowledge in talent-related research?
Sure. Thank you, Morten, and thanks to my colleagues, and thanks to everybody who's out there listening to us. And the Paris Peace Forum. Is my voice okay this way? Clear?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. So, the whole question of global talent mobility is really a fascinating topic, and trying to govern it or establish rules and framework for governing it will be a real test for the world, and we want to play a role of that, particularly after COVID. So one of the things that we've discussed as we've gone through this is really that we really need more systematic and more up-to-date research and research data. So the research component is really one of the key issues for the existence of the AGTO. We put together a list of what we thought issues that we thought that we could, or functions that we thought that we could fulfill. So the first thing is we really need common terms and standardization, internationally accepted standard terms and definitions for some of the key concepts. For example, what is talent, right? How do we define talent? How do we measure a government's level of investment in human resources? What's accepted, what's not? If you want to do comparisons, then you have to have a common set of terms. Second, we're going to aggregate. We will have a core body we want to be the core body to aggregate the data and the metrics in the field of talent development, talent mobility, migration, and talent deployment and its utilization. Third, we're going to we will plan to do a global talent report, do one every year, which we hope will be the recognized benchmark for policymakers, practitioners, and scholars to be able to offer them comprehensive, forward-looking, data-driven information and analysis. Without the data, you really can't make good policy. We're going to have a small team of researchers, highly selective, that will make sure that the data that we collect is reliable, is accurate, and that we'll put all this in our publications and our reports. The team will be largely responsible for the annual report, for documenting key developments across the globe, and again, pull together the data, particularly data that our stakeholders feel that they need. We're going to go look for money. Hopefully, these activities will be funded by foundations, by international agencies, private donors, and we are planning to engage in contract research wherever that seems appropriate. If someone comes to us and wants us to do this, we're more than glad to do it. This research team will drive our annual Global Talent Forum. So our plan is to have an annual talent forum, initially in Hong Kong, and then rotated around the world, Europe, the US, Canada, Australia, places where these are really, China, of course, places where these are really key issues. And there'll also be a good network, a chance for people to get together and network in this. We're going to try and have interns for the research. This will give, my own son is in the midst of trying to look for internships, and those of us who have kids who are looking for internships know the importance of internships for young people for their own personal development, and they can play a very positive function for us. The last point that I would emphasize is that we're really going to be a clearinghouse for all kinds of research, theories, best practices, newest initiatives, policy initiatives, academic articles, podcasts, and interviews with various leaders of some of these organizations. And we'll do that through a well-managed website. And hopefully people in the field of human management and talent will say, hey, I need this information. I'm going to go to AGTO. They're sure going to have the kind of stuff that we're looking for. So we want to be the go-to place.
Thank you, Dr. Zweig. I think it's really important what you mentioned, what you said. Research is really key and crucial for mastering, especially these uncertain times. And frankly speaking, there has been a lot of research on talent mobility already. And we perhaps do not like to duplicate it, but to add with new meaningful components that are missing so far. And I think there have been a lot of significant research gaps we also have to tackle now, and a lack of consistent, reliable statistics, for example. Also, most of the research in the past has been done from outside, perhaps from the academic ivory tower, and with little engagement with stakeholders. And I think the point what you mentioned, the aspect of partnered research together with stakeholders and actually catering also to their research needs, to their actually intelligence gathering, and what they need is really at the heart of the AGTO, from what I understand. So to cover really from local to global, across sectors, from industry to government, I think that is really at the heart of the AGTO. And speaking of partnered research, of course, this brings us to our final discussion question about the key actors in strengthening global talent mobility. And I'd like to introduce here our final panelist before opening up then this panel to the audience and starting our Q&A session. And as was already mentioned, please, our question to the audience would be to please post questions already now on the chat box. And now I'd like to introduce Mary Madashahi, who is member of the advisory committee of UNESCO's International Center for Creativity and Sustainable Development. Dr. Madashahi, who would be the key actors in strengthening global talent mobility in your view?
Thank you very much, Martin, and thanks for inviting me actually to this important meeting. As we heard from other speakers this morning, talent mobility drives economic growth, sustainable development, cultural creativity, international cooperation and understanding. Different stakeholders using talent mobility to enhance business industries and economies. Effective talent mobility practices require collaboration, as it was mentioned by many speakers before. And this collaboration has to be among multiple stakeholders. While the benefits of such a strategy are clear, collaboration in itself is complex and difficult, and is also, from time to time, requires special effort to implement. Convincing stakeholders to consider goals greater than their own, and their own immediate ones, of course, takes diplomacy and persuasion. To ensure successful talent mobility practices, it requires effective governance mechanisms that must spell out who will lead the effort, what information needs to be shared among participants, and a focal point, as Henry mentioned. We must identify partners in this field, as Dennis mentioned, and these partners include government, private and public sectors, international organizations, NGOs, academia, educational and research institutes, and above all, headhunters who collectively and individually are facing the challenges of talent mobility. AGTO, as a new center for global discussion and consultation, as it was elaborated by the Director General, plays the most important role to identify the critical talent shortfalls and the absence of a global governance across countries and industries, and it can help highlighting the importance of more targeted human resource investment, better skill management, and more effective strategic planning for procuring and training talents for future. In this endeavor, it is important to follow the good practices in training and coaching talent and talented workers, and to introduce new methodologies to acquire competencies. We strive to develop new form of global mobility in response to business demands and employee preferences. We must recognize that the search for best talent is a race that takes place at the global level, as it was again mentioned by the speakers before me. Companies and other actors around and across the world are competing with one another to attract the brightest people, as it was mentioned by Henry. Therefore, we try to advocate for a win-win policy approach to talent mobility that takes into account the needs of both industrialized and developing countries. In doing so, we are reaching out to manifold partners in private and public sectors, and this ensures all-encompassing global partnership. The list is long, but I can refer to a few by way of example here. As Steve mentioned, we have already a few very important partners, but we have to reach out to governments, and the governments not only in all aspects, but particularly in higher education, migration, and human resource sectors, including employment and retirement. We have to reach to IGOs such as UNHCR, ILO, IMO is already our partner, UNESCO, and OECD, the World Bank, among others. Private companies, they will play a very important role, including banks, insurance, and consulting companies who are active in the talent mobility. Among these groups, mention should be made of Marsh & McLennan, Deloitte in the United States, ABB in Switzerland, Communication Standard Chartered from United Kingdom, Louis Vuitton from France, Prudential, United Kingdom, and also there is a Confederation of Indian Industry. There is also McKinsey, as we all know, and others. In academic and research institutes, we should look at Graduate School of Media Design in Keio University in Japan, Harvard Business School in the United States, WPP, McGill University in Canada, Emirate Foundation, United Arab Emirates, and the Keil Institute for World Economy in Germany. And of course, I am not mentioning 15,000 NGOs around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I think it's really important to reiterate that the AGTO will strive to include a diverse range of stakeholders that are all relevant and working on talent mobility, including, of course, also associations of talents of experts, such as the Chinese Talent Society, for example, and similar entities in our activities. And I think we could have had a few more rounds of discussion, definitely, and there's lots to say about talent governance and what the AGTO will try to achieve. But at this point, I'd like to open this panel for discussion and start our Q&A with the audience. And we already received a few questions, and please feel free to continue posting some of your questions. I cannot guarantee that we can take care of all the questions, but I have then also the solution for you at the end if we do not manage to come to your question or well, if you have even more to ask and want to find out, we're gonna definitely give you also a solution for that problem. So here's our first question. So the first question would be for Dr. Wang. We heard from you that the organization works closely with IOM, and also there's a connection to the Global Compact on Migration. Can we hear more how the AGTO will ensure that mobility opportunities are available to talents in an equitable manner?
Yeah, thanks, Martin, and I thank all the great panelists for the discussion. I think AGTO is really an international non-government initiative that the Paris Peace Forum has been incubated for the last 3 years. What we are thinking is now there's a boundaries, there's barriers, there's also obstacles for talent mobility. So we want to really have the talent so that we can facilitate talent mobility, we can learn the best practice, we can work with international organizations, we can work with United Nations and also other non-government sector organizations to really promote the mobility, and also we can learn the best country talent policy practice. That we know that the American US has been really a country, the core is established on its talent, has the best talent around the world. We have the EU countries doing so well, and China is also learning from those things. I think there's quite a lot of exchange that we can work on. I also think that the universities, that we have worked with many universities, and also professional organizations. Of course, we mentioned about headhunter across the world, and we also, with all those R&D and multinationals, there were thousands of R&D centers around the world. And also, the COVID-19 has actually given us a new chance. Now, how we can utilize the talent on a virtual basis through the online and through the internet. So this is actually creating a lot of new things that we can work on and can study, can research, and also we can recommend the best talent competition practice. We can generate a global talent report, as Dr. Zweig mentioned. So I think with all the great things that we're having, of course, we can also work with UNESCO and many other international organizations. Yeah. So that's I think many stakeholders can participate.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think this is also really crucial, because if we just refer to the UN Global Compact, there's a lot of text, but it's actually not applicable to the local level and to the stakeholders. And I think the AGTO here is vital, because I think this connection has to be made first to the industry, to the different sectors, and also the municipal level, the many provinces and regions that are really interested in talent governance and across the world, actually. Yeah, so we have another question for Dr. Simon. It's a short one, perhaps also short answer that we can get to some more questions. Strategic foresight that you mentioned would indicate that you're working with futurists. Can Dr. Simon clarify this point?
Yes, I think as Henry indicated, that is exactly the case. We want to work with a broad spectrum of individuals, not only looking back at the past and the present, but I think one of the most important things that we can do is look to the future about how the evolving situation regarding talent is going to take shape. And therefore, we can identify the opportunities for intervention in a policy sense or a governance sense, so that we can avoid problems and conflicts that might appear down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much. Next question I have here, I think is probably most relevant to ask Dr. Zweig. Since the AGTO has already engaged in some research, or some of you have engaged in research related to world immigration in the future, what would be probably the new research focus of the talent-related topics, and why? What do you think? I think the question is really, what are the key objects of research we have to do in the AGTO? Key focus.
Well, I think you can even go back to the first question that was raised, comes to mind, which is the question of equity. So you want to look at the distribution of talent. Once we define talent, we might want to look at the distribution of talent around the world, and using that as a jump-off spot. Then start to talk about regulation versus free movement of people, and there's a question that just comes to my head, which is, who benefits more? A country that limits the movement of people versus a country that maybe has a more open border system. Given the recent policies in the United States to restrict the flow, or you think about the difficulties of flow. I mean, I'm working on the flow between the United States and China, and the government policies constraining that flow, particularly in the U.S. I mean, a lot of people are saying this is going to hurt the U.S. So if it constrains the flow from China, is there opportunities for people from India? Does this open up new opportunities? I mean, these are the kinds of things that I would be interested in. I don't know if that's a good answer, but it's certainly in a post-Trump era, that's the issue. Assuming that we're going into the post-Trump era, of course.
Let's see.
And so that strikes me as one topic. Just so equity, flow, strength of countries. How much does it help? I mean, some of this research has been done before, but we can update it, upgrade it as the world is changing, ever changing. We need to update.
Yeah, I think what we could also add, just also as a researcher here, is I think the future of work, right, and the whole trend of remote work, and perhaps something like the pooling and the sharing of talent, of remote talent, right, and how it will affect, and who is actually mobile, or who will be mobile in the future, who will continue to be mobile as a talent, and who is perhaps much more sedentary today, and how will this affect then actually also this so-called war over talent, right? If some talents have actually the choice now to simply stay put or choose the nicest Caribbean island to work from, and actually are not all migrating any longer, right? So I think that the whole specter of talent mobility is really now is also affected by these new trends of remote work and so on.
Remote. It's hard to, when people cross borders, that was the way that the governments control it. I think you make a really good point.
Exactly.
So now we're all
offshore.
It's all offshore, and we're coming in and being able to play a role in a country without ever having crossing the border. So that whole question, how do you establish regulations and control?
Perhaps Mary can give some feedback.
Yes, there is actually a question for her as well. So I'm going to read the question. Here is referring to the win-win approach you mentioned. What kind of policies do you envision being implemented that would be beneficial to both industrialized and developing countries? Mary, could you answer this question?
Thank you very much. I guess the question of cost and benefit of talent mobility, or in the past, as they were offering the word brain drain, is highly debated. There are differences between the industrialized countries, developing countries, and underdeveloped countries, or the least developed countries. So the least developed countries are those that they don't have economic facilities, proper environmental situation to attract or keep their talented people. And they are suffering from a kind of periodic conflicts, civil war, poverty, hunger, and many other negative aspects, which is attributed with non-performance economy. We have developing world that they are, like India, for example, that they have the facilities, but they are not using it properly, or they're overproducing talent. They have too many lawyers, they have too many doctors, they have too many nurses. At this point, they have too many technocrats that they really would rather export them than keep them at home unemployed. Then we have industrialized countries like United States, Europe, and Canada that they exchange talent in between. Canadian, they attract talent, they give it to United States. United States try to maintain it, but from time to time, the European, they snatch the talent from United States. So you have a very volatile kind of market. How do we create a win-win for particularly underdeveloped countries, I believe, is helping the government to create adequate conditions, to create proper environment for attracting back their talents from those parts of the world that this talent, they exist. Now, in order to do so, you have to really concentrate on one sector like technology, that at this point, we have too many overflow from developing countries towards the industrialized countries. These people, if they're being attracted back, they bring a benefit to their original countries because they help those countries to develop further in the areas that is really missing, and they bring back the knowledge that they have earned where they really were migrating before. Mm-hmm. The government has to be helped, the country has to be helped. There should be a mutual understanding between the industrialized countries and the donor countries, or recipient and donors, and there should be a kind of good governance, as Henry mentioned. This is something that AGTO is trying to develop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and there have been a lot of more questions, and perhaps you see them still in the chat box, but I'm really sorry. I was told also that we have to finish on time. And of course, we have prepared a solution for this problem, that some questions perhaps are not answered, or there's hopefully also now so much interest in joining the AGTO and learning more about the AGTO, so that we have a solution for that, and that is a contact email address. And I think it shows in the chat box, but I also gonna do this weird thing now to show you this email address here. Please, if you have any questions and that are unanswered, and you have also the interest to join, hopefully, the AGTO, please send us an email to this email address. And I think it's also in the chat box now. Yeah, I'd like to conclude now this fantastic panel, and thank you, the audience, for joining us for today's early morning, or very early morning, for the soft launch of the Alliance of Global Talent Organizations. As mentioned, some byproduct and outcome of the Paris Peace Forum, very closely linked to the Paris Peace Forum. And I'd like to thank, of course, also all our distinguished panelists. It was a pleasure to have you all here and to learn more about the AGTO project. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.